Hey guys, welcome to another portion of Straight Talk. Today I want to talk just briefly about Ephesians Chapter 6. Now in Ephesians Chapter 6 there's a lot of information here, but I'm just going to skim over and highlight some things that I think are really important. Last time we talked about Ephesians Chapter 5, and at the end of that chapter, Paul's talking about wives and husbands and how they should interact together, and he moves right into children and parents in the first part of chapter 6. You see, what Paul is doing is Paul is trying to get us to understand the social network and how that works, how we to interact as a family in order to fight against Satan. He talks about the first part of 6 about the children and the parents, and it's really important to us for us to understand. He talks about honor your father and mother. He talks about obeying your parents. But he talks about all this in the aspect of discipline and instruction from the Lord. We have to have discipline and instruction from the Lord in order to interact as a family unit the way that Paul says we need to. And this is very important for us to understand because he says, fathers, you're the head of the house. You are the spiritual leader in that family. And it's up to you to make sure that you are providing the discipline and the instruction that comes from God, not man's instruction or man's discipline, but God's instruction and God's discipline. This is so important, he says, because Satan is very much alive. Satan is attacking the family unit. Satan is trying to destroy marriages. Satan is trying to destroy the relationship between the children and the parents of the children. Satan's goal is to disrupt that family. And Paul said it's so important for us to understand this and know how powerful Satan is because, listen, he can't physically come and do anything because Jesus has bound him. He can't physically make you do anything, or he would. So what he does is he lies, he uses deception, he uses trickery. He tries to get into your mind and get you to destroy that relationship. So Paul says, listen, this is important. You need to understand how to interact, wives and husbands and wives. You need to understand how to interact with your children and children to the parents because you need to have the whole armor. He goes on to talk about some things, and we've all studied the whole armor of God. And what he's saying, there's about 4 times he talks about standing. We need to make a stand against Satan. The way we do that is through the discipline and instruction of the Lord, by making sure we have the proper armor on, making sure we're equipped to fight against his tricks, his lies, his deception. So Paul says we need to make this stand. We need to take up that whole armor of God because we're vulnerable to Satan's tricks. We're leaving our family vulnerable. We're leaving our wives, our husbands, the relationship with our children. We're leaving all of that vulnerable to Satan. And he slips in there and he disrupts it and tries to break up that family unit. When we understand how powerful Satan is, then we can understand the need for us to have the proper discipline and instruction, the proper armor on. Because Paul says, listen, even though Satan is powerful with his tricks, being a child of God is more powerful. If we use the tools that God provides for us, we can withstand Satan. We can be victorious. We can resist evil. We can do that, but we've got to have the proper equipment. We've got to have the proper discipline and instruction. Once we understand that, then we'll be victorious. And he wraps all this up with prayer. He says, you have to keep prayer involved in your relationship. You have to keep prayer involved with your relationship between the husband and the wife. You have to keep prayer in your relationship with your children. You must wrap everything up with all prayer and supplication. To be able to stay on the alert against Satan's devices, we've got to stay as close to God as we can. Don't try to fight Satan by yourself, or your family will suffer. Use God. Use His instruction. Put on His armor, and you and I can withstand Satan. But we must do it with Christ. That's my thought for you today as we look at Ephesians. That's just straight talk from me to you. Have a great day.